Hi, my name's Laura, Support Coordinator at Spinal Cord Injuries Australia, and in my spare times I watch too many TikToks and then compare commentary with my teammates.
Hey, my name's Hides. I'm a T4 para and I work out at Spinal Cord Injuries Australia as their Peer Inclusion Development Specialist.
We're going to talk about a TikTok that came from Senator from Western Australia, Jordon Steele-John. And he talked about an experience that he's had where somebody laid their hands down on him and basically tried to pray the disability out of him.
So, have you ever had somebody come up to you in the street and attempt to heal you? Because I have. That's happened to me. And I think my favourite, definitely not favourite, version of that happening was a couple of years back when I was invited to be part of the opening of a centre that was dedicated to supporting people that didn't have a place to live. And I was invited there. It's run by a religious organisation, and after the formal parts of the ceremony of opening, one of the main organisers came up to me and said, "Would you mind if we prayed together?" Now, I'm not a person of organised faith, but I also really deeply respect people that are, and I didn't want to be disrespectful in that moment. So I said, sure, that's absolutely fine. So he knelt down in front of me, and I'm like, okay, this is a little bit real, but let's go with it. And he came in quite close to me. And by the way, if anyone hasn't, seen me before, this is how I get around the world, right? I'll show you. So this is the wheelchair. So to be on my level, and he puts his arm around me again. A little bit close for comfort, but fine. And comes in like quite close to my ear, and says, "Okay, we'll pray now." And I'm like, "Okay, I really hope that this is a short prayer." And he says into my ear, "Heavenly Father, we humbly beseech thee to offer your blessings of healing upon this individual, that he may rise from his place of, a place of brokenness, into your heavenly love and walk again." And then got up, patted me on the shoulder and walked off. So yeah, has anything like that ever happened to you? Let me know.
And I know that people are very well-meaning when they do that sort of thing. I don't think people go in with a lot of malice when they're trying to heal the disability out of people. However, on this episode, we're going to talk about why that's inappropriate and share some experiences that we've had during that time. Now, do any of you want to maybe share? We'll kick off by doing a bit of a around the campfire, sharing our stories kind of deal. Heidi, do you want to start first? Do you have an experience where somebody has tried to heal you or whatever?
Yeah, I grew up Catholic, so, I think I was a bit of a rager when I was a teenager, so I'm sure on the inside my mum was probably trying to pray that away. But since I've acquired disability, I had my injury about 15 years ago, and that was kind of my first experience with somebody coming in to the picture, trying to kind of pray it away. I had my injury. I was laying in my hospital room. I think I'd just come off a morphine button that I was pushing nonstop. And then, a group came in, and they seemed to be people that just happened to visit hospital, which is great for those that are looking for a bit of support. They kind of just came into my room, a bit unsolicited, didn't really know who they were. And they all came around my bed and said a big prayer and said, "We hope you get better, and here's a gift for you." And it was the middle of summer, and they gave me a giant blanket. So it was just weird overall, really.
As a newly injured person lying in a hospital, but I
was pretty ropeable, to be honest. I was in a position where I was told, and the MRI shows it and all the scans shows it, that the doctor said to me, "Your spinal cord is obliterated." So there's really no coming back from that. Mine's a pretty clear-cut injury. So I guess for me, it was just a little bit frustrating because I'd just gotten all this news. I was in a really vulnerable state. I didn't know who they were. And all I kind of wanted was people around me that really knew me and were there for me, you know?
So my disability may be a bit different to you and Heidi because I was born with my disability. So I have cerebral palsy that impacts my walking and mobility. And I remember there was a time when I was about 10 years old. I was down the front with my dad whilst he was washing the car, and I was sort of sitting on the brick wall. And the Jehovah's Witnesses were doing the rounds, and they stopped and they said to my dad, they looked at my legs and my orthotics, and they looked at my dad and said, "Oh, there'll be a cure soon." And he goes, "Oh, when will that be, mate?" And the guy goes, "Soon," and storms off. So now looking back on it, it's a very funny story. But I remember a lot of the times when I was growing up, especially when I was a baby before I was diagnosed with the cerebral palsy in the neonatal ward, people similar to you, Heidi, they'd say to your family, "Or we'd pray for you. We hope they get better." And whilst they can be well-meaning, like our families have got a lot more on their plate and there's bigger things that they're worried about.
And I'm going to share a story because as soon as I saw that TikTok, I had this flashback to the time when I was studying and I was doing a journalism course. I was coming back home and usually what I would do is I'd go from the Blue Mountains to the city 3 times a week. And I did this for about 2 years. And then I'd drop in on a Wednesday night, and people who live in the Blue Mountains would know. It's called the Ori. It's super trashy on a Wednesday night. I was there with my friends, and then these women approached me. And one of them said to me, "Do you mind if I put my hands on you and heal you?" In the middle of a pub at 10:30 at night. And I said, "No, don't do that." She goes, "Why? Don't you want to walk again?" And I said, "I didn't walk to begin with, so I don't think I'll be walking again." The thing is, though, is that they came back week after week after week for about 2 months. And then eventually they tried to get me to go to their church, which was like 5 minutes down the highway. And I went, "Yeah, I'll think about it," and then never went. And this was one of many, many stories like yourself, Laura, where like through childhood people would just feel this need to try and heal you then and there. So, there are instances where my father's friend told us to go to this evangelical church she was going to, and I just have this very 5-second flash of being 4 years old on my dad's lap in front of everybody on stage, and this pastor was had his hands on me and he was like, "You will heal her, you will heal her." What I'm saying is all of that was highly inappropriate, and we can all agree that should never have happened in the first place. But let's break down why. Does anybody want to talk about why that's so inappropriate?
We've had our disabilities or our injuries for a long time, and we have an acceptance with our disability. It is what it is. It's not going to change, and we just want to live life like anyone else. But I think especially when I'm thinking for my participants that I work with that are younger, or if they're still in the adjustment stages of their injury, if someone prays for them or wants to heal them, whilst it means well, it can be quite upsetting or triggering for the person because, as Heidi, she works in peer support, you'd be teaching the clients how to use public transport out in the community, wheelchair skills, so they might be feeling really happy and confident, and then someone would say something like that well-meaning and it would just be a blow to their self-esteem.
But you're so right. That's one of it's one of the things we come across all the time. As you said, we work with people in peer support, people that have had brand new spinal cord injuries, and kind of your life has changed in an instant, and it's that age-old assumption that people with disability don't live full lives. So people will do a lot of work in rehab and be there for like 6 or 7 months at a time and finally get to a point of feeling confident within themselves, you know, confident in their chair. Doesn't mean that they're happy to have disability or anything like that, but they get to that point and have been doing public transport trials, have been going out to cafes, you know, building up that self-confidence. And then you're exactly right. That happens and people come across you and, you know, as you said, they mean well, but the message that comes through to us is more like you're broken, something's wrong with you, whatever's happening to you is not right, let me fix it. You need fixing.
Even when I think about all of them all together, it really comes from a place where I think inherently, I remember saying to a woman once, I am not going to be your version of healed. I'm completely fine. I'm okay with not walking. I've actually decided now that that's just going to be my go-to phrase because people are not expecting that as an answer and they're not okay with me being so okay. But apparently it comes back to the person themselves, right? So if they have spent their life being an able-bodied person, you know, whatever, and then they see somebody who, not in your words, but as you said, Laura, we're all broken. So like, you know, maybe that's their own inherent fear. I don't know.
I can see it. You can use this religion kind of argument both ways. You know, there's the one way where it's praying the disability away. You're not good enough. You don't look how you're supposed to look. You're supposed to look like us. You're meant to walk. All this is wrong. And then, you know, like the people we work with them for so long and we see them in such, you know, same as what I was, in a vulnerable state, and then to finally get to a point of self-confidence. You know, we work so close with them and I got this lovely message from one of the people that I've worked with from his partner, and, you know, they're religious, but her message was different. You know, I think I would prefer this way. I'm all for religion and whatever everyone believes in, but the difference in her message was, you know, it was something like, may God bless your path moving forward in continuing to provide support for other people in our situation. You know, may he lift you up and kind of fill you with confidence, that type of thing. Although I'm not religious, I really appreciate that. And I think it's the meaning behind it that makes the big difference for sure.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there. You know, I've had participants as well say, you know, God bless you, you do a great job. And yeah, as I said, I'm not religious either, but I'm still appreciative that we've made a difference in their lives. And I think personally, and I suppose a lot of other people with disabilities as well, I can't speak for everyone, but I know I would prefer someone to offer me more practical support than just saying a prayer for me. Like there's been times where I've had a fall in public and people have stopped to make sure I'm okay. I'd much rather that than people just praying for me and making it a really awkward situation.
Pray to stand up off the ground, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just going to be brutally honest out here. There is no cure, okay? And I'm somebody who is religious.
Yeah.
And I'm well aware of the fact that there is no cure. So what are you saying?
Yeah. It's just like, it's take a second, think about what you're saying and what impact that's going to have on that person. You know, I would much rather someone come up to me if that is going to be what they were going to say, like just maybe get to know me, know that I've traveled around the world. I live with my boyfriend. I live in the city. I own my own apartment. I work full time. Like, what do you want? What more do you want? Do I have to not have disability to pay taxes? Like, mate, I pay taxes.
Because it's the ultimate goal, Heidi.
I know.
If we were to think about if there's somebody out there who who may have, you know, thought that maybe that was an appropriate thing to say, right? Like, maybe that was reassuring for, and actually, you know what? It could be reassuring for a lot of people, because in a time of desperation and vulnerability, that could be something that can help them. I'm not saying that that's the wrong thing, because people choose to believe what they want to and then find strength in different things, right? But if we're going to be very real as three people who have had disabilities for a very long time, and the disability is not going to just go away overnight, or else this organisation would not exist at all. What can we say? To just say, listen, I mean, you've said it basically, take stock of what you're saying before you say it. But do we have anything else that we want to add?
Yeah, look, I think just think about what you're saying and what the impact is. And you know what, people, that goes for everything. That's not just this stuff. You know, just think about what you're saying and do a little bit of research. It's really not hard. Google's free. You can just go on there and have a look at people in wheelchairs and know that, you know, we're actually, a lot of us are quite successful in what we want to do. You know, it's not all about walking.
I think a lot of it's also maybe what had been outwardly perceived for disability for a very long time on the media, right? Because if you're really thinking about how disability has been perceived in a lot of television shows, for example, or even movies, and I mean, I've talked about this endlessly. There hasn't been, like, every few episodes I talk about the impact that the media has made on the larger community and how they absorb disability themselves. And there isn't a whole lot of people that have met a lot of people with disabilities in the one go. They might meet one or a few. They might not have seen an entire crowd of wheelchairs and mobility devices coming at them because we're all going out, for example. So maybe that has something to do with it?
Yeah, I think media is huge. You know, we want to be seen and represented, and people that are new to this life, if they are someone that's acquired disability or if they're super young and they're children, you know, it doesn't mean to say that we need to see people in chairs everywhere, because that, like, whatever, if we do, that's great. But, you know, just some representation. And if you are talking about us, you know, talk about us respectfully. Where, you know, a lot of us are just doing our thing and living our life. We don't feel the need to educate all the time when we're out. So it's, even in the media, do a little bit of research, you know, think about the language that, you know, kind of helps us as a minority, rather than, you know, keep stunting us along the line and portraying us like that to everybody else.
No, I agree with everything that Hardy said. I think the media nowadays is a lot more diverse. They've got actors and actresses that have their own lived experience with disability, so it's more authentic. And I think where the notion of thoughts and praying could come from is potentially from the older generation, where disability was still quite segregated and not shown in a positive light. So I just think when you have an interaction like that with someone, just keep that in mind. Like, whilst, you know, we shouldn't be obligated to educate them every time, understand that they might not have a good understanding of disability or spinal cord injury, and then also as well, make sure you take care of yourself after those interactions and keep on doing what makes you happy, and don't let you be defined by it.
Actually, you know what, that's a really good point, because we didn't actually talk about how to look after yourself in a situation like that. Even in a situation where, let's take the religious part out of it and the prayers part out of it, and talk about people talking about your disability like you're an alien, or, you know, I could never, you know. Let's think about some self-care that we can do. And maybe it doesn't have to be a personality trait thing, right? You don't have to be in your face when somebody is talking to you about that, because that's a certain personality type that I know I am, because I'm quite argumentative and Filipino. So, like, you know, and Heidi, sames.
Yes.
Both Filipino and possibly argumentative. But you know, let's talk about some self-care tips, because I think that's really important when we're coming down to things like, what do you say when, not just if somebody says something with good intention but poorly executed, but also when people say things that are so off the chain offensive, but they really do think that they are being quite nice about it, but actually what they've said is so offensive. Like, for example, here's one. You don't have to respond back when people ask you if you can have sex. So, like, it's not something that you should be even being asked in the first place. Like, it just seems incredibly inappropriate. And you don't need to do what I do and just snap back and say literally none of your business. But what can we do to encourage people to just be like, actually, you're all right. That conversation was just stupid.
I guess fortunately I don't have people ask me ignorant questions about my disability anymore, but I know when I was younger I did, and it got to me quite a lot. So I would talk to my mum or a trusted person as a debrief. Now, what I still struggle with and what my family pick up as well when we're out and about is the people that stare, and there's the children that, are generally interested and don't know any better, but then there's adults that shouldn't be staring and they do know better. So in those instances, I'll just stare at them back till they stop staring. I'll just try and do something later that day to make me feel better if it gets to me.
Yeah, as a fellow Filipina that's fiery, like, I'm usually pretty quick and witty off the mark, but sometimes when these things happen, they just catch you off guard. And it's that whole, it's like an episode of Seinfeld where, the moments.
This is literally the second conversation today where Seinfeld's been mentioned.
Oh, really?
That I've been a part of. But yes, go on.
Seinfeld is life. Where, the moment has been and gone, the person's long gone, and then I go, oh, I should have said this. I just thought of the best comeback. It's so bizarre to me that people say these things and are okay with it. And like in the moment, I kind of go, is this real? Is this really happening? So I think for me after that, one of the first things that I do is just ring my mum and go, oh my gosh, you should have just heard what I heard today. Guess what someone said? So for me, a bit of debriefing and kind of getting it out allows me to not kind of hold it in there and just stew over it. And just become really angry. But, a lot of the time I'll snap back for sure and make an super awkward situation.
The personality I have now, it was forged from years and years and years of dealing with, let's be honest, people's bullshit. And actually just thinking about a time where I think they thought that it was well-meaning and wasn't the case. Was, and I'm not going to name any names or situations, but like it was a disability-led art thing, right? And we got to the stage where it was like the final show of all the artwork and whatever. And this person asked their friend, who also was part of a disability art-led whatever, sit down and like do a brief interview about the artwork I created, right? And then I don't fully remember the question, but I know it was 5 years ago and it caught me completely off guard and I fully couldn't stop the tears coming, and I was on camera crying.
Oh,
and
no.
I could not stop what was happening, and I felt so embarrassed in that moment because they had asked something that was what they thought was going to be an informative question about disability, but actually was something that was quite triggering, and I didn't even know until I was being asked, and then suddenly I'm on camera.
Wow.
Crying about this thing. Please be conscious about the questions you're about to ask someone if you are not somebody with a disability yourself, because even though you may not know what you're about to say, and even though my disability is like in its 39th year now, there are situations I don't, like you were talking about, like we were all talking about earlier, confidence is like a lifelong struggle.
I'm always amazed when a comment or a question like that can trigger us. And it's not, it's not a thing where we're a little bit soft about that part. It's that, and for you guys, it's different. You guys have done this your entire life. I've only been doing this for 15 years in a chair.
That's still a while. Yeah, but it's a while new.
Bloody long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I didn't deal with the going through puberty thing and, that whole other side of it, turning into an adult. But for people to say those things, when we say it triggers us, in my case, it's you have just negated the 15 years I've spent becoming independent, being who I am, living without carers and doing everything myself. You've just like kicked it all out the window and just assumed that, nope, you can't do anything. Your life is not good enough. It just sucks.
Laura, do you have anything to add?
No, I think we've all summed it up perfectly.
At the end of the day, think about it, guys. Just think about it. Before you go and lay hands on people to try and heal them, before you try and figure out whether or not your words are encouraging or hurtful or triggering in any way, how about not saying it?
Have a pamphlet. Everyone's got pamphlets.
Have a pamphlet. I do believe in God. If he is meant to mirror all of us, then God is also disabled. So let's think about that for 5 seconds. And if that's too much for you to absorb, well, then maybe reassess how you see God.
Yep. I don't know. Yeah, I agree. I think I get that everyone's coming from a really good place, but, please just think about what you're saying and think about the impact that's going to have on people, whether they have disability or not. Even if you're just going up to a random person that doesn't look like they have disability, you just, give me a handout. I'm done.